In today's world, noise is everywhere. Everyone is talking, posting, proving, chasing. We've mistaken volume for value, and in that noise we've lost the ancient art of silence. The Stoics understood something the modern world forgot. Power doesn't need to shout. Strength doesn't need to prove. Truth doesn't need to explain. They believed silence was not a lack of words. It was a presence of control, because when you speak less, you see more. When you chase less, you attract more. And when you stop explaining, you finally understand who deserves your energy. The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have. Epictetus. The Stoic never chases approval. He never begs for attention. He never explains his worth. He moves in silence, not because he is weak, but because he is sure. You see, silence isn't emptiness, it's power waiting to be understood. It's clarity in a world drowning in noise. So in this journey, we'll uncover 6 Stoic lessons. Why chasing weakens you, why begging destroys dignity, why explaining yourself is a trap, and how silence, when mastered, becomes your greatest strength. Take a breath, slow down, step back from the noise, and listen, not to me, but to the calm inside you, because that's where real power begins. 1. Chasing weakens you. The more you chase, the more you lose yourself. The Stoics knew that what's truly yours will come by alignment, not pursuit. When you chase someone's attention, you're saying, I need you to make me feel complete. But that's not strength. That's surrender. Chasing comes from fear, the fear of being alone, the fear of being unseen, the fear of not being enough. And every time you chase, you reinforce that fear. No man is free who is not master of himself. Epictetus. Think about it, and when you chase, you move out of your center. You place your peace in someone else's pocket. You give them the power to validate or destroy you. The Stoic refuses to do that. He doesn't chase, he attracts through stillness. He understands that energy moves towards strength, and stillness is strength in its purest form. People chase because they think movement equals progress, but often stillness is the real move, because it's in silence that you gain clarity, and in clarity, you make decisions that serve you, not your ego. When you stop chasing, you reclaim your energy. You tell the universe, I no longer run after what isn't mine. And that's when things start coming to you naturally. People, peace, purpose, because you've created space for them to arrive. Chasing is chaos, silence is alignment. So when you feel the urge to chase someone or something, remember this. What is meant for you will never run away. And what runs away was never meant to stay. Stay silent, stay centered, let life come to you. 2. Begging destroys your dignity. Begging is one of the fastest ways to lose your power, because every time you beg for love, for attention, for closure, you're declaring that your worth depends on someone else's decision. The Stoic never begs. Not because he's arrogant, but because he understands that self-respect and begging cannot coexist. He who has great power should use it lightly. Seneca. To beg is to tell the world, my value depends on how you treat me. And the moment you do that, you've already given away your peace. You can't force love. You can't demand respect. You can't beg someone to see your worth. Because if they can't see it on their own, your words won't change their blindness. The Stoic accepts this truth with calm detachment. He knows that begging never builds bonds. It only builds resentment. Instead of begging, he lets silence speak for him. Because silence says, I wanted this. I deserved this. But I refuse to lose myself for it. The Stoic knows that walking away is not defeat. It's self-preservation, and that's where real dignity begins. When you stop begging to be chosen and start choosing yourself instead, begging is fear disguised as love. Silence is love, aligned with wisdom. So next time you're tempted to plead or explain or fight to be seen, stop, breathe, and remember, you are not missing out. You are being redirected back to your power, because the one who refuses to beg is the one the universe eventually rewards. 3. Explaining yourself is a trap. We live in an age where everyone wants to be understood, and that desire quietly kills peace. You explain yourself to people who already decided not to understand. You justify your choices to people who never respected them. You defend your worth to people who only hear what feeds their ego. And you think you're finding peace, but you're only losing power. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it, Epictetus. The Stoics never wasted words trying to prove their purity, because they knew the moment you start explaining your character, you've already accepted someone else's misunderstanding as truth. The need to explain comes from a wound, the part of you that still believes your worth is negotiable, but the Stoic knows you can't argue someone into seeing your value, so he stays silent. He lets his actions speak. He lets his peace become proof, because silence is a language only the wise can hear. You don't need to explain why you walked away. You don't need to defend your distance. You don't need to justify your calm. When people misunderstand you, it's not your job to correct them. It's your job to protect your peace. Explaining drains you. Silence trains you. It teaches you that not every misunderstanding deserves clarification. Some only deserve your absence. Because those who truly respect you won't need your explanation, they'll recognize your intention, and those who don't respect you, no amount of explaining will ever be enough. So when you feel the urge to prove yourself, pause. Look at your reflection. And remember this truth: your energy is too sacred to spend on convincing the blind to see. Let your calm be your defense. Let your silence be your explanation. That's the Stoic way. 4. Silence exposes the truth. Silence is not emptiness, it's revelation. When you go quiet, masks fall, patterns appear, intentions become visible, words can hide the truth, but silence reveals it. What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say. Ralph Waldo Emerson. The Stoics understood this long before psychology gave it a name. When you stop reacting, people show you who they are. When you stop explaining, you see who values your peace over their pride. Most people live in performance. They act kind to keep you around. They speak beautifully to cover what's hollow inside. But silence strips away the act. Go quiet for a week and watch. The ones who care will reach out. The ones who used you will disappear. The ones who manipulated you will get angry. Not because you wronged them, but because your silence took away their control. Silence is not passive. It's the most active form of discernment. When you stop feeding people with attention, you starve their illusions. You stop participating in lies that were never your responsibility to maintain. And that's the moment clarity walks in. You start to see who's honest, who's loyal, who's aligned. You stop asking, do they care? Because their absence will tell you everything. You stop chasing answers because their silence becomes your closure. Silence turns confusion into truth. It turns chaos into clarity. It turns pain into perspective. That's why the Stoics valued silence more than speech, because silence doesn't flatter the ego. It exposes it. So if you want to know who's real, stop talking, stop chasing, stop explaining, just go quiet and let the truth reveal itself on its own. 5. Silence is the highest form of confidence. When you stop explaining, stop defending, and stop reacting, you enter a level of peace most people never experience. Because silence is not weakness, it's mastery. Confidence doesn't roar. It breathes quietly. It moves calmly. It stands unbothered in the middle of storms. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. The Stoic doesn't need to prove his worth through words. He proves it through presence. He doesn't chase validation because he already knows his value. He doesn't beg for attention because attention is the currency of the insecure. He doesn't explain himself because truth doesn't need translation. That's real confidence. When you're misunderstood and you remain silent, not because you can't fight back, but because you've outgrown the need to. Explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you is like trying to wake someone pretending to sleep. It's pointless. Your calm silence will do what words never could. It will make people question their assumptions. It will make them reflect on what they lost. It will make them realize your peace was louder than any argument. True confidence isn't loud, it's composed. It's choosing not to attend every battle you're invited to. It's realizing that silence doesn't mean defeat. It means you've decided the fight is beneath you. And that's the kind of energy the world respects. Not the one that screams, but the one that stays centered when everyone else is unraveling. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing peace. You don't owe anyone words to prove your worth. You owe yourself silence, because that's where your power lives. 6. Your silence teaches the final lesson. When you go quiet, you stop reacting. When you stop reacting, you stop feeding chaos. And when you stop feeding chaos, you reclaim control. This is the final Stoic secret. Your silence is your teacher, and theirs too. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Seneca. When you detach quietly, something shifts. They start to wonder. They replay the moments. They feel the absence of your energy. And that absence teaches them what your presence never could. You don't need to lecture anyone about how they treated you. Your silence already does. You don't need to prove you've moved on. Your peace already shows it. You don't need to send a long message explaining why you left. Your distance is the explanation. Most people only learn through loss, and when your silence replaces your words, they finally meet themselves in the mirror. Your silence becomes their accountability. Your detachment becomes their lesson. Your calm becomes their discomfort. But here's the beauty. The lesson isn't really for them. It's for you. You realize that peace is more valuable than connection, that dignity is more powerful than attention, that silence isn't punishment, it's protection. The Stoics mastered this art. They didn't chase, beg, or explain. They simply walked away quietly and let their absence speak, because when you stop reacting, the world loses control over you. And in that moment, you become untouchable. Final Stoic closing. Let silence be your power. If you've made it this far, you already feel it, that calm rising inside you. The world taught you to chase, to beg, to explain. But the Stoics teach you something far greater, to observe, to detach, to be still. Silence is not about giving up, it's about leveling up. It's about choosing dignity over drama, peace over reaction, understanding over chaos. The more tranquil a man becomes, the greater is his success, his influence, his power for good. James Allen. There will be moments where your emotions scream, speak, defend yourself, prove them wrong. But in those moments, remember this. Every time you stay silent, you rise above noise. Every time you walk away, you reclaim your strength. Every time you refuse to explain, you honor your self-respect. You don't need to be loud to be heard. You don't need to chase to be chosen. You don't need to explain to be understood, because your silence, when it comes from strength, from clarity, from peace, is the loudest sound in the world. So walk quietly, Stoic warrior, not out of pride, but out of wisdom. Let them wonder, let them question, let your silence speak. Because in a world obsessed with noise, your calm is rebellion, your silence is power, and your peace is the ultimate flex.